The storm had already passed, but the sky over rural Montana still looked bruised and heavy, the way a heart looks after it's been broken too many times. In the gray morning light, Mark Henderson stood on the splintered porch of the trailer he and his 6-year-old daughter Chloe called home, clutching a final notice from the utility company. It was the third one that month. His hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the fear that had been gnawing at him since the day his wife passed away and left him to raise their daughter alone. He didn't cry anymore, grief had burned every tear out of him. What scared him wasn't hardship, he knew hardship. What scared him was running out of ways to protect his little girl. And today, staring at a piece of paper threatening to snuff out their remaining bit of warmth, he realized he was almost out of time. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the quiet resilience of the human spirit, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this find the people who need them most. Mark knew he couldn't afford to be picky anymore. He had applied everywhere, hardware stores, delivery companies, the local lumber mill, but no one wanted a worker who needed to be home by 5 to get his child from school. He felt like every door he touched closed just a bit harder. When a neighbor mentioned the one job no one wanted, the night shift janitor at the old Lakeshore Community Center, Mark didn't hesitate. The pay was terrible, the hours were long, and the place was rumored to be falling apart, but it was the first job willing to hire him on the spot. And more importantly, they didn't mind if he brought Chloe as long as she stayed in the break room. The center, once lively with community events, had been slowly abandoned over the years, its walls echoing more with memories than people. When Mark walked through its dusty hallways for the first time, he felt like he was stepping into someone else's forgotten story. But maybe forgotten places still had room for people like him, people who felt forgotten too. Each evening, after picking up Chloe, he brought her along, bundled in her pink coat, carrying a tiny backpack of crayons and snacks. She would sit at a metal table under a flickering light while he worked through the cavernous building with a mop and a bucket. The pipes groaned, the floors creaked, and the air always smelled like old wood and faint chlorine from the closed-down pool. Sometimes, when exhaustion pressed heavily on him, he wondered if he was doing enough, if love alone could shield a child from so much uncertainty. What he didn't expect was how the job, in all its loneliness, would become the turning point he never saw coming. One night, as he was cleaning the gymnasium, he noticed Chloe had wandered in after him. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at a faded mural of children playing basketball. "Daddy," she asked softly, "why doesn't anyone come here anymore?" Mark paused, leaning on the mop. He didn't know how to explain the slow decay of things people gave up on. Instead, he told her that sometimes buildings just needed new people to love them. Something in Chloe's eyes brightened. Children, unlike adults, always saw possibility before ruin. Over the next few weeks, Mark started noticing her drawings changing. At home, she no longer drew pictures of the trailer or their small kitchen table. Instead, she sketched the community center, only not as it was, but as she imagined it could be. She filled her pages with bright banners, smiling faces, a gym buzzing with activity. In every picture, there was a little girl with pigtails and a tired man with kind eyes, standing together in the middle of it all. Mark pinned one of her drawings to the center's bulletin board during a shift, thinking it might bring him a moment of cheer each time he passed. But what he didn't realize was that someone else would see it too. 2 days later, the center's director, Margaret Collins, asked him to step into her office. Mark worried instantly, he couldn't afford to lose this job. But instead of reprimanding him, Margaret held up the drawing and asked about the little artist behind it. When he explained that his daughter saw potential where others didn't, Margaret's expression softened. She told him the city was considering shutting the center down for good due to low funding and lack of community involvement. But the drawing, bright, hopeful, childlike, reminded her of why the center mattered in the first place. It showed what the place once meant to families, and maybe what it could still mean if someone cared enough. Mark didn't expect, nor ask for, what came next. Margaret invited him to join a small initiative to revitalize the center: weekend cleanups, repairing old equipment, reopening the gym for kids, hosting free after-school programs. They didn't have a budget, but they had volunteers, at least a handful. And suddenly, Mark wasn't just the janitor sweeping empty rooms. He was someone helping rebuild something meaningful. For the first time in years, he felt purpose tugging him forward instead of grief pulling him back. Despite working nights and volunteering on weekends, Mark found himself energized. Chloe became the team's unofficial mascot, handing out crayons to younger kids, laughing more freely than she had in a long time. And while Mark pushed brooms and scrubbed walls, he began connecting with people who appreciated his heart more than his resume. They saw a father doing everything he could for his child, and they respected him for it. The transformation wasn't quick. Months passed before the gym gleamed again, before the peeling paint was replaced, before the smell of dust gave way to the scent of popcorn during weekend movie nights. But gradually, the center came alive. Teenagers played basketball under new lights, families gathered for community dinners, and elderly residents returned for morning yoga sessions. Laughter echoed where silence once lived. Through it all, Mark became known as the man who saved the Lakeshore Community Center, not because he did it alone, but because he believed in it when no one else did. And perhaps more importantly, because he let the community believe in him. People began asking about his story. When they learned he was a single dad working nights just to keep the lights on at home, donations quietly appeared, gift cards slipped into his locker, winter coats for Chloe, envelopes with no names. One local business even offered him a full-time daytime maintenance position with benefits, impressed by how essential he'd become to keeping the center running. For the first time since losing his wife, Mark felt like he could breathe.